This happened to me around 4 or 5 years ago, and it has taken me until now to muster up the courage to speak about it. I was scared about retribution or not being able to find work, but this event kinda screwed that all up for me anyway. I used to work as a waitress for a decently sized company. This company, it would provide staff and services for all manner of events. Large-scale conferences where lunches or expensive dinners were required. Wait staff for private parties or private events and performances. You name it, in the company that I worked for, they provided it. I think they provided other staff too, like security guards and the like, but it wasn't something I was ever really involved in, so I wouldn't really know. Because the company that I worked for was a contracting company, it was the perfect fit for a lot of people. There weren't any staff on a permanent payroll on a permanent basis. It was just a one-time contract every time they'd offer, so people could use it as a second job or a second opportunity and work after their regular day job. This also meant that the entire service was discreet and that staff could be filtered and replaced, etc. What this meant, and I know I won't be believed, but that's okay, is that my company ended up providing services for people of a higher class, people who you might refer to as the elites, although that isn't really the word that I would use for them personally. I'm not talking like A-list celebrity types exclusively. I'm more referring to those born into a lot of money. Names and faces you don't really see talked about in media or press. Of course, I have worked events for people that you will know, just very few and far between. This one that I worked, that I want to tell you about, it was the only time something seriously strange happened. I'm not talking about people acting predatory or abusing staff kind of strange. As horrible as it sounds to say, that was pretty much part and parcel. It was just expected. I'm talking about disturbing, messed up, something I don't know how to explain to people without sounding like a crazy person. So, this event was a private party. There were a lot of staff on duty, contracted by my company. I'm talking wait staff, cooks, security staff, etc. There were even staff that weren't working for my company. It resulted in you working with a lot of people that you barely knew, and it could make you feel very alone. The rules for these kinds of events were always strange. You see, the guests, not always, but very often, they would wear masks, just cheap white disposable masks designed to obscure their identities. Some would forego it because they didn't really care. This was usually the really rich, people who didn't have anything to lose or really care what you thought about them. The staff, though, we did not get this privilege. At every single event that I worked at, I would be required to have an ID on me. I would have to present this ID to any guest that asked for it, no questions asked, full name, birth date, etc. Sometimes I would even have to give my address to them. It was scary, actually, but I really needed the money. On top of that, we had to wear name badges on full display at all times, and we were not allowed to hide our faces whatsoever. We had to wear whatever uniform the guests requested too, which could be anything from a normal waitress outfit to something more strange, I guess I would say. They could also request things like you wearing your hair in a certain way or wearing other things, and the company would enforce this on us. I digress though. I don't want to talk about the mundane stuff and make this too long. I understand the more I share, the less I will be believed, so let me get straight into it. I'd spent hours waiting hand and foot, serving food, refilling drinks, answering questions that the guests asked me. If the guest asks you to do something, you have to do it. No questions asked, or you are fired. Sent home on the spot immediately. This goes the same for any personal questions that they may ask you. I've definitely had to do some uncomfortable things I'm really not proud of. I didn't mention where this event took place. It was some kind of luxurious manor that was built out of the way. This was not in a big city. There were lots of big forests and wooded areas all around. pretty scary looking back on it. You were stranded miles away from civilization, with nowhere really to run or hide. Anyway, this one guest was becoming really touchy with me. At one point, he asked me to fetch something for him. He told me that in a cupboard in the basement of the manor, he had some wine that he wanted everyone to try. He told me that he wanted to see me sip it. It was really weird how he talked. He talked as if he found everything erotic. Like, even the most basic human actions, he talked as if they were all sexual. Walking, talking, working. It seemed like even the most mundane things gave him some kind of sick sexual pleasure. He asked me to go and fetch it. He told me what it was and where it was, although I don't really recall the specific wine right now off the top of my head. And so I ran along, and I did what I was told. No one escorted me there. I almost got lost. The place was so big. It was all mostly wooden, and the stairs made this horrible whining creaking sound whenever I placed my weight on them. Once I got down to the floor, it was all stone. The room was freezing, and the room was piled high with stacks of boxes. Boxes of files, CDs, other random junk. And then you had racks of wine and beer and other stuff. It was really strange. It was a complete mess and not what I expected at all. I was told that the wine that I was looking for was not in any of the racks. It was actually in another room on the far end of the room that I was given a key for. I could hear weird noises the whole entire way into this room. Some kind of slurping and snorting. It sounded like someone aggressively smacking their lips while eating food. And when I got over to the door, it was already slightly ajar. I will never forget what I saw. There were bodies on the floor. 2 people were slumped up against the far wall of the room, just completely passed out. They were both waitstaff, a man and a woman. And then, almost directly in front of me, was another waitress passed out on the floor, laying on her back. And there was someone over her. They were kissing her face and then sucking on her nose and her eyes, just licking her face and suctioning with their mouth. But they did not have a human face. Their head was enormous, twice the size of a human head. They had these giant, bulging, pure black eyes that reflected everything like a mirror. And it was this pale gray color, but just the head. Once you looked down to the neck, they were a normal human skin tone, but the entire face was a pale gray. I only had time to notice one other thing before everything got worse. There was a white mask that had been discarded onto the floor. I assumed from this person thing, I assumed they were a guest. But the white mask was not the only thing discarded. There was another mask right next to them. It was a mask that it looked to be human skin, made to look like a human. I don't think it was made of plastic or anything fake though. I could smell it. I could really, really smell it. It smelled like rotting meat, and when I saw it all bunched up and partially inside out, I don't know. Something deep inside my brain was giving me this primal response. Primal response that something was wrong. It could easily have been not real skin, but something told me it was. I can't explain it. This all happened so quickly. This person, they noticed me. I tried to run away, but the heels that I was required to wear, they got caught in the uneven floor, and I went tumbling to the ground beside a barrel. The heel had snapped off entirely, and I could just feel how cold the floor was on my foot. This thing starts walking towards me as I start shuffling away backwards, desperately. All I can do at this point is just cry. I could feel the tears just pouring down my cheeks, and I knew I was going to die or something worse. As this thing walked towards me, it lifted up an index finger. It was still human, but it put the finger in its mouth and started biting it. It started biting into the skin of the finger and tearing away bits and flakes until I could see a gray finger underneath. All I really remember about it was that it had a long claw shooting up from it, where the fingernail would be. It looked more like a needle than anything else. And this thing ran towards me and grabbed me by the throat and then shoved this finger into my neck. It was like a sharp stinging pain, and almost instantly I felt drowsy. I felt heavy and shaky. I felt like I had spun around in a circle like 50 times and was now trying to walk forward normally. After he stabbed me with that needle-like claw, it just stood and watched me. I could hear it laughing as I tried to get to my feet and kept falling back down. The last thing I remember is crawling up the first couple of stairs on my stomach before everything just cut to black. I have no idea how long I was out for. But when I woke up again, I knew I was not in that basement anymore. I woke up to see something blindingly white in my vision. There were some lights up on the ceiling. I was strapped down to something, but I could not move my head or my neck or my arms at all. That thing was standing over me. Maybe not the same one. It could have been a different one. It wasn't wearing a suit or fancy clothes or anything anymore. None of the skin was human skin anymore. I remember that I saw others. There wasn't just the one. And I know that out of my peripheral vision, I saw other people like me. I don't know who they were. They were just a blur for me. After this, my memory is so hazy. I was blinking in and out of consciousness for what I can only describe as hours. I felt some sharp stings occasionally, in the top of my head and in my neck at one point too. I remember at one point that all of my clothes were removed. I remember that at another point, I felt lighter. I don't know if that makes sense, but my body just felt like it didn't weigh as much, like I was full of helium, like I was floating in the air. And I felt that for a long time after this event happened. I remember being roused back awake by a scream, a really horrible one. It was coming from a man. I could only describe it as gut-wrenching. He wasn't in my peripheral vision, so I don't know what caused it or what even happened to him. One last thing that I do recall is a weird smell. I could smell something chemical toward the end. I remember feeling it because the hairs inside my nose were all on fire. I could feel it giving them an electric shock. The next time I woke up again, I was in some random alley. I was nowhere near the manor property. I was almost completely naked, with only a towel and some horribly dirty clothes that weren't my own tossed on top of me. I could not help but cry. I had no phone on me, no cash, no nothing. They don't let us bring those things with us when we work. We take an ID card and the clothes on our backs, and that's about it. Everything else just stays behind. We're not even allowed to drive ourselves there. So, all I could do was just stumble through the dark streets that were barely lit for hours until I got somewhere that I half recognized. I didn't even have any shoes on my feet. My feet were blistered and raw by the time I made it somewhere that I knew. I think I walked for hours, and a concerned couple were kind enough to help me call a cab. I didn't really know what to tell them, but they knew that something was wrong. I know what you're thinking at this point. Go to the police, go to the hospital, right? It wouldn't have made any difference. Going to the police would have made my life worse, I know it. And the hospital. If they found out I went straight there. No, when they found out that I went straight there, I would be in deep trouble. It's just how these things work. It sounds bizarre and not normal, I know, but it's just what I had to do. When I finally got home, I slept. I slept for a day, maybe even longer. And when I woke up, I just cried. I still get flashbacks randomly throughout the day. It haunts me. I don't think I will ever be able to move past it. I could be having the happiest day of my life, and it will just suddenly hit me, and then my day is back to being horrible again. My company never contacted me again. After around a week after the job, I received a payment from my work, my services, as they like to call it. It was more money than I had ever seen before in my life. I'm not talking millions, obviously nowhere near something like that, but a lot of money. More than I should have ever gotten for one lousy shift. I did not call up or ask or anything. I just used the money. You see, this company, you don't contact them, they contact you. You get a call randomly, sometimes in the middle of the night, and they ask whether you want to work or not. And I guess they just didn't see a use for me anymore. This is the first time I've talked about it since that day. I don't even go to therapy because, what would I even tell them? And if I did tell them, I have this deep, uneasy feeling that they would find out somehow. I really don't want to take that risk. I really don't want to go out anywhere anymore. I don't really work anymore. I don't know. I had a really bad day today. I could not stop thinking about it, and thought posting it here might help. A place where no one knows who I am and where, frankly, most of you will not believe or care. Answers would be a bonus. Just seeing the words written down instead of them swirling around in my head is a bigger relief than you could ever know. I just hope I never have to go through something as horrible as that ever again. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I used to have a part-time job as a security guard at a senior home, not assisted living, so there weren't really any nurses or such on the premises, just me and around 50 to 100 old people. My shift was weekends, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., though nothing really happened until 10 p.m., when all of the visitors left and the residents were all asleep. I walked around, checking out windows and doors, making sure that they were locked. The cafeteria has a door to the back garden. I made sure to lock it too. After finishing my rounds, it's about 4 stories high, I get back to my desk and I see movement in the garden. It's windy, so I assumed it was just trees and bushes blowing around, but I keep a close eye on it. That's when I see the shape of a person in a white dress, dancing in the garden. I race to the cafeteria and I see nothing. After checking the door, I see that it's still locked. I go back to my desk and watch the feed. She comes back, whirling around, and it makes me feel cold. I grab my phone and go and check one more time. There is still nothing, but this time, the door is unlocked. I relock it, head back to my desk, and look through the cameras. There is nobody in the building, but I walk around again just in case, just to confirm. After confirming that nobody is inside, I sit back down and calm down. I just assume that I mistakenly unlocked the door. Then, I see a shadowy figure standing in front of the main entrance doors. I look at the front camera. There is nothing there. I look back to the door, and the shadow is standing right there. That's when things got really weird. The shadow smiled directly at me, this big white grin. Then it disappeared. Then the doors opened. To open those doors, you need a security card, or a resident needs to open it up from the inside. Nobody was there to buzz them in. My desk is in front of the doors, and nobody was outside to use a card, but the door is wide open. I brace myself to deal with whatever tries to enter through the second set of doors. Those are just motion sensor. Nothing comes. The outside doors close, and the inside doors remain shut. After the doors shut, I saw a flash of light in the garden camera, but then nothing. I decide to call maintenance and tell them about the faulty door, and walk outside to investigate, going around the whole building just in case I find that it's a little kid just messing with me. That's when I see the giant steel double doors where the dumpsters are stored. They are bent outward. A vehicle hitting the doors would push them inward. but these doors looked like they were rammed from the inside. When I mentioned that to maintenance, they were shocked. The doors were fine when my shift started, and I did not hear any noise. It would take a massive amount of force to bend those doors. I don't think there was anything inside the building that could reasonably do that. I quit a week later. It's gonna be hard for me to properly explain this one, but I think there was something weird going on at my old school. I left many years ago now, and I've told before about the immortal English teacher I bumped into years after leaving, but something came up the other day that made me think it wasn't just her. So I'm reading the paper, right? And as I'm reading the paper and flicking through the pages, I see my old form tutor in there. He's been arrested for going mental with some woman. I recognized him right away before I even read his name. He was my form tutor from when I was like 12 to 16 years old, so a good amount of years. He was mid-20s at the time, and already balding really badly. Now, around this time, he'd be around mid-40s, and he is still balding badly, without being bald, and he still looks exactly the same as he did, like 20 years ago. A couple of years before I bumped into an old teacher I got on really well with. In school, he was nearly 50 years old, with his salt and pepper hair, if that's what you call it. Now he'd be knocking on 70 years old, but he had the exact same hair, and he did not look like he aged a day. I ran into an old school friend who told me he had seen our old PE teacher, who I really didn't get on with, at a match. But this friend mentioned to me, he specifically mentioned how he is identical to when he was at school. Quote, I mean like identical, Anon, and he looked really spooked out. I went on the school website to see what teachers were still there from when I was there. There were only 2, and the rest had been moved on. But I genuinely thought those 2 had just used old photos of themselves because they had not aged either. Then I thought about the teachers who were nearing retirement and decided to Google them. Specifically obituaries, because they would easily be in their 80s by now, and some of them maybe even older. I could not find a single one. I've personally known at least 3 people, just from my class, die young in those 20 years, but not a single school teacher, which seems highly unlikely. So, the simple conclusion, there is a vampiric cult at the school involving the teachers, and I am going to get to the bottom of it. So, when I was around 6 years old, my parents were on the rocky road to divorce. They would always argue at night, really loudly. It would be hard for me to get to sleep, and sometimes they would wake me up. I woke up one night to them arguing in their room. I look around my room, and I see multiple black, shadowy, smoky figures just standing in different places in my room, all around my bed. They seem to be looking at me. Standing over my bed, one puts his hand over my mouth so I don't scream. The shadowy figures, they give me a hug and try to console me without words. They show up every time that I wake up to them arguing. It's really hard to describe the feeling. It's just, when they touched me, it just made me feel calm and at ease and safe. I don't know. But they never said any words. They never told me to calm down or that everything's going to be okay. It was just an implicit feeling. Around a few years later, my parents split up, so I'm probably around 10 years old at this time. I am living with my mother. My father moved out to a different house. My mother's new boyfriend is staying the night this night. He comes into my bedroom. I wake up and he covers my mouth and starts to touch me. I am old enough to understand he should not be doing it. I start to cry and close my eyes. After a few minutes pass by, I hear the sound of him choking and gasping for air. I open my eyes to see those same shadowy figures from before, from when my parents were arguing. One of these shadowy figures has its hands wrapped around his throat. They are choking him. My mother's boyfriend, he is clutching at his own throat. He can't breathe. They pull him off me and off of my bed, and they lay him on the floor on the ground, they are still choking him. All of these shadowy figures, they were all choking him at once with their combined force, but one of them pulls away from him and stops restraining him and comes over to me and holds me. My mother's boyfriend, he passes out and they pull him out of my room. The next morning, I wake up to my mom and him talking. My mom talks to him and says, "Why did you sleep on the couch last night?" Her BF responds saying, "I heard a sound coming from Anand's room. I went to check and I didn't want to wake you up, so I slept out here." My mom just replies saying, "Ah, you're so sweet." Fast forward to when I'm around 16 years old. The shadow people come to check on me every single night. My boyfriend sneaks over into my house. He knocks on my window, and when he does, the shadow people just disappear. He climbs in through the window that I opened up for him. We get to start making out. He tells me he wants to have sex with me, but because I'm only 16, I tell him I'm not ready. He says okay, but he keeps on trying, he keeps pushing. He starts to get rough with me, and he starts to restrain me with his hands, grabbing my wrist. I start to cry. I see the shadowy figures reappear from the corner of my eye. They pull him off of me. They drag him into the corner of my room, and they simply just disappear with him. Like, he just blinks out of existence. Him and the shadow figures were no longer there. Fast forward to the next day. He comes into school with a black eye, and he refuses to talk to me. People in school start to call me a witch, forced to move to another town. Fast forward to this new town, new school, new house. I start dating a girl. Few months into this relationship, I tell her about the shadow people. She stares at me in disbelief. She thinks it's a psychological disorder. She stays with me and wants to help. She spends the night, and I try to call out to them. They don't answer. They don't show up at all. I start to question my own sanity at this point, and I began to put it in the back of my mind. Fast forward to when I was 24 years old. I had a very long time without any incidents. I'm still with a girl from high school. We rent a small flat together. 4 months after we move in, someone breaks into the apartment at night. They tie us up. The room gets dark, and all of the lights just burst. The men start to freak out as the room is filled with these whispering voices. A single shadowy figure appears in the room. This shadowy figure, it's larger than normal, maybe like 7 feet tall, way taller than all of the other ones I've seen before, more defined as well. One of the men has a flashlight, pointing it around the room to try and find the source of the whispers. He sees the shadowy figures. The shadow, it grabs them both and takes them, and they blink out of existence, just like my boyfriend did all those years ago. And he leaves behind blood all over the floor. I just see blood all over the floor. Our neighbor comes along and sees the door open and investigates. He unties us, and we call the police. The blood starts to slowly vanish before the police arrive. I tell the police about the robbers, and I don't know how long after it was, maybe a couple days, maybe a week. They find the bodies of 2 men ripped in half on the edge of town. Well, they didn't say ripped in half, they just told me that they were found dismembered, and I guess I kind of put the pieces together myself. I can't remember what excuses that they gave me for why it happened or what kind of an investigation they were looking into. A few days after that event, after we found out the news, my girlfriend ended up breaking up with me. I am now 31 years old. I wake up regularly in the middle of the night to find them watching me. When I try to touch them myself, they just simply fade away. There's only physical contact and a feeling when they touch me. About a week ago, I'm not really proud to admit it, but I tried taking my own life. I was lying in my bathtub, and I slipped my arms from my inner arm to my wrist. I slowly faded from consciousness, and just as I felt that I was about to start slipping away, I felt as if I was being lifted into the air. I felt this weightless feeling. I woke up on the couch at my mother's house, which was 2 towns away, by the way, the very next day. My mom comes in and says, "Oh, Anon, when did you get here? You never said that you were coming over. How did you get inside the house?" After spending the day with my mother, she took me back to my flat. My apartment floor was coated in blood from the bathroom to the door. The tub was filled to the brim with a mixture of blood and water. I don't really know what to do now. I don't know what's going to happen. Does anyone have any explanation for me? This didn't happen to me personally, but I'm going to tell it from their perspective. My boyfriend is working at a sandwich shop in Fresno, California. He's a typical normie man. He has no knowledge of, nor really gives a fuck about anything paranormal whatsoever. I don't even try to talk to him about it because I just know he doesn't care. One day, while working the register on an extremely slow day, a child walks in all by himself. He's a boy, maybe about 10 years old. The child looks highly unusual. His eyes are massive and almost completely black, with little to no whites around the eyes, just completely all black. They must be as big as golf balls. My boyfriend is shitting bricks. The child comes up to the register and orders a very basic sandwich. He acts like a normal kid, and even orders something that a kid would eat, just a plain sandwich with meat and cheese. My boyfriend takes his order while trying to maintain his composure and goes to the back to his coworkers. He tells the two girls in the back that he is absolutely terrified and asks them to see for themselves. The first girl looks out the front. She immediately starts crying. She is petrified. The other one cannot believe what she is seeing, and she refuses to go out there. Whatever this kid looked like, it was enough to completely horrify 3 grown adults to the point of hysteria. They make his order while he waits in the lobby, and my boyfriend brings it to him. He tries his best not to lose his shit as he faces him one more time. Holy shit, why are his eyes so huge? The kid politely says thank you, takes his food, and then leaves. My boyfriend refuses to talk about it, even to this day. He hates when I ask. The only rational explanations I can think of were that it was a prank and that he was wearing a prosthetic or had a really rare birth defect. My boyfriend swears the eyes did not look fake and that they looked around and even blinked. My theory is that an alien hybrid must have gotten away from his handler for a moment to go and buy a sandwich, like a kid might want to. That, or it was a legitimate, black-eyed child. What the hell happened in that sandwich shop, X?